My first day back to work, get this. That night, there was an officer-involved shooting. I get the phone call. I roll out at 11:30 at night, go out to my car. I'm thinking, what in the fuck did I do to deserve this?
Welcome back, fam. Today we have a true veteran of law enforcement, my guy, Bill Barnes, joining us with an impressive 28 years of dedicated service. Look, Bill's career culminated as a seasoned homicide detective in the Riverside Police Department. And diving into the world of homicide requires an exceptional level of emotional intelligence and dedication qualities Bill undoubtedly possesses. However, we're going to explore a different aspect of Bill's journey today. He's going to share with us a challenging experience, a complaint investigation within internal affairs involving accusations of inappropriate behavior towards a district attorney. This incident not only shocked Bill's professional world, but also stirred mixed emotions about the leadership with RPD. So, without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Bill as we dive into this episode of Internal Affairs, a police podcast. Let's go. Okay, we're back. Code 6 with Bill Barnes. Thanks for coming, bro.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, man. I'm ecstatic that I'm one of the non-LAPD guys you have in.
Yeah, you're.
I feel special.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we should. And didn't we move you up on deck?
I shot up a month early. I mean, man.
We're going to have a really good conversation. So, but before we do that, you know what? Let me give a quick shout out to all my sponsors out there. Savage Training Group, Law Enforcement Modern Training. I happen to be a law enforcement instructor for the Internal Affairs Officer Involved Shooting 2-day course with Savage Training Group, along with my partner, James Tacchini. Look, there's all kinds of different types of training. Go to the website and pick what you have, but the most important thing of it all is that it's not death by PowerPoint, and it certainly isn't check the box. We're engaging. We're doing group exercises. We're doing a lot for you to educate out of the classroom because that's super, super important for all of us to have as police officers. Then we have Code 4 products, any type of the coins, challenge coins patches. Code 4 products are outstanding. Go to their website. You're going to love their products, as you can see that's displayed here on our podcast show as well. The Titan Group, professional investigations. Look, you have internal affairs investigations, whether they're police, whether they're fire, complex investigations, or any type of real professional, precise investigations. Get a hold of the Titan Group. And last but not least, coffee, man. What cop doesn't have coffee, right? Code 7 coffee, you got to get it. Whole bunch of different flavors. All of our sponsors' websites are on the YouTube channel. Please go and visit, and hopefully they can be of service to you. So, without further ado, another special guest, Bill Barnes, formerly with RPD, Riverside PD. That sounds hot. It's in the Inland Empire.
It is, yeah. It's a good size agency now. You know, the city now is about 400,000. Mm-hmm. There's about 400 sworn there now. Obviously, when I was there, not that many. There was probably 300.
Okay, so there's like 400 now.
Yes.
What are the border agencies?
Well, you have to the west. You have Corona.
Okay.
The Riverside Sheriff's Department, Harupa Station handles Rubidoux, which is to the, I guess it would be actually to the west, northwest, I guess, southwest. I don't know. Riverside has a very, very complex, difficult compass reading out there. Yeah, everything north of Arlington Avenue is north-south. The other side of Arlington Avenue goes east-west. It's unless you grew up there like I did, it's screwy, and you're not going to learn it very fast.
Which, for whatever reason, you ended up in the 818 like me.
I did, yeah.
Hey, man, San Fernando Valley, the 818 is where it's all at.
Yeah, jackpot, right?
So we say. Okay, well, you know what? Let's kick it right off and get right to it.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, rate the importance of internal affairs in a police department and why.
It's an absolute 10, a solid 10. But I will say, with an addendum there, or whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
if done properly. If it's weaponized, then it's dog shit. Okay? Then it's a 0, to put it bluntly. I hope I didn't irritate anybody with that.
Oh, no, no,
Okay, good.
by no means.
So it's, if done correctly, which nowadays, all indications are in most agencies, especially the big ones, your former one, mine now, from what I understand, is done very, very well. And it's a solid 10.
Follow-up question. What, in your opinion, makes it weaponized?
If you are investigating a sole complaint on something very simple, and that complaint becomes pretty much, handled, and then you start venturing out, exploring some other things that had nothing to do with that original complaint. You just go on a little bit of a fishing expedition. To me, that is just wrong. Stick to what the complaint is. If during that complaint something else comes up, by all means.
Right.
But once that you've handled that complaint and you're satisfied, whether it be right, wrong, or indifferent, go with it, and let's resolve it.
Yeah. So we did say that dog shit makes it a 2. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
You were definitely a little more blunt than I was. I like to call it half-baked.
Fair
Because I'm
enough.
sure you've had some, or have heard of a half-baked investigation. It's kind of
Yes.
like,
Yes.
you remember like, just like putting, I don't know, I'm just thinking like chicken or salmon in the oven. You put it at 420 for like 10, 15 minutes. Comes out and all of a sudden you're biting and you're like, it just.
Pretty much half-baked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about certain internal affairs investigations. And you know what, as humorous as that might sound, it's serious stuff,
Yes.
you know. And I think what I'm learning more, and of course I try to get some growth as well, but what's more important than anything is the fact that it can be the most minor type of allegation. You know, don't make it half-baked. You got to go all the way,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Finish the sentence for me. As an internal affairs investigator, my job is to...
Be fair, collect all the facts, collect all the evidence. Like you say, do not leave any stone unturned, and go where the evidence leads you, go where the facts lead you. Don't be judge, jury, and executioner. Write it up fairly, and send it wherever it needs to go.
Do you feel sometimes that we are biased?
Yes.
Have you had the experience with her biased?
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're not the only one.
Now, don't get me wrong. There is nothing more that a good cop despises is a bad cop. Okay, for those out there that are bad, for those out there that have done wrong, that are have committed some type of malfeasance, hey, roll them up and get them out. Okay, but let's not sweat the things that, for instance, if something is brought to me and I'm dead wrong, I will admit it. I will man up like most good cops will do and say, I was wrong. Guilty as charged, Your Honor. Give me my, sentence me. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is keep a guy in limbo for months and months and months on something that can be resolved a lot quicker.
Yeah, you know what? That is the punishment.
Absolutely, it's the punishment.
Yeah, it's one of our guests said it best, right?
Yes.
The punishment's not the penalty. The punishment is the process. And you know what? That couldn't be so far away from the truth. I mean, that is so
That
locked
is
on.
absolutely truth. 100%.
Absolutely. Do you feel sometimes that your job as an internal affairs investigator, I think you said it best in terms of you shouldn't be judge and jury.
No.
Sometimes do we kind of be the adjudicator or?
In certain instances, I've talked to a lot of guys from your department, and they have this thing that's called the military endorsement.
There you go.
And that seems like everything can be just smooth as gravy. And all of a sudden you get to that 4th, 5th level and somebody says, no, let's send this, higher. Why?
The hell with Bill.
Yeah, come on. I mean, to me, I don't get that.
Right. So here you are, it's unfounded, and all of a sudden it gets to that 4th, 5th level. You know what? I don't like Bill. Let's just make it sustainable.
And in a big, huge department, I doubt unless that the officer who is carrying the beef would know. There's so many. There's 8,000 of you guys now, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
At
what
one
are
point
the
it was
odds?
10,000.
Yeah, exactly. What are the odds? Now, in my department, that is very simple to do, but we don't. We have a whole different type of punishment system there. At least I'm going on when I was there.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't think
absolutely.
it's changed, but I know that it's gotten better at my place than it was when I was there.
See, hard lessons learned, right?
Yes.
So you were,
Yes.
you guys were the test.
I tell a lot of the young kids that have come on, and they I see them out somewhere, and they'll look at me and go, we don't do it that way anymore. And I go, hey, you need to thank me. You need to be very appreciative. Guys like me paved the way for in-car cameras, for the body worns,
Body-worn video.
and all that. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah,
My era, it made it possible for all that. Whether, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Which is
Because I didn't have that when I was on. We didn't have cameras. We didn't have
Right.
We didn't have any of that. In fact, my last year in patrol is when we finally got computers in the car, and I never learned how to use the damn thing. So that shows you how far back I go.
Well, you left in 2010, and that was our next
Yes,
segment
yes.
is Trip Down Memory Lane, which is interesting. I was going to ask you anyways. You probably didn't even know about body-worn video.
Back then,
Yes.
no.
Well, since we're in the topic, just out of curiosity, what do you feel about body-worn video? Pros and cons.
Pros are it can help you. It can really, really help you if you've done everything right, and there is somebody that is alleging some type of problem with the way you handled something.
Right.
That can really help. And it's like they say, the proof is in the video. The video don't lie.
Good. What about some cons? What do you think?
I think sometimes people don't understand that the language involved in a violent arrest, in a violent type situation,
point.
or something that has that potential. Sometimes you have to meet the language coming from us.
Yeah.
We have to kind of overcome that, and sometimes we have to meet, bad words with bad words.
Yeah, no.
And police work is a very, very ugly business at times.
I keep saying, man, there's not one use of force that's like, oh my God, that was,
Right.
it looked good. It's ugly.
No, they all look bad.
Yeah, they all look bad. No, totally. Yeah, tactical language.
Tactical language.
That's right. That's what it's about. I am with you. I am a big proponent of tactical foul language. If it gets you to overcome resistance, affect an arrest, or get some compliance. I think that's. I'm with you on that.
I know that de-escalation is a big word now, and a
Yes.
big thing that's come up. And what I've noticed is that de-escalation is great, but it's up to the person who's you're dealing with to de-escalate. You can do all kinds of things, say all kinds of things, but unless they decide to de-escalate, it ain't going to work. And in sometimes de-escalation will produce escalation.
Man, you know what? That's a walk-off right there. That's a mic drop to say a couple of things. One, my boss, Scott Savage, talks a lot about de-escalation, and exactly what you said is so true. It's not like it's an offer, right? I mean, what are you, inviting someone to a de-escalation? That's not the way it works.
No, it's not the way it works. You're wanting them to, stand down.
Right.
And if they don't, and after 30, 40 minutes, they're pissed off, they're angry, and they decide, I'm not going to go along with the program, then other things have to happen and will happen.
Facts, man. You're talking facts. Look, before we leave this body-worn video that I just asked you, my thinking is, and maybe you can agree with me, is one of the cons is what you said earlier, weaponization. it
Correct.
can be used
Yes, absolutely.
to weaponize a possible beef, aka an internal affairs complaint investigation. And you know what? Joking set aside, it's sad to know that sometimes that could be the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Trip down memory lane. Look, we just kind of covered a little bit. You know, you gave me. You know what? I never heard of the term hero sheet. If it's okay with you, I would like to.
That's what we used to call it when we'd write a search warrant.
Well, if
Your
you know,
hero-
if
your
it's
hero sheet.
Well, I like to, implement that
Perfect.
particular phrase into the show. If it's okay with you.
I hold no copyright,
trademark?
no
No?
copyright
We're good with
infringement
that?
on that at all.
Okay, well,
Be my guest.
I like it. I like it a lot. I have it here, and I got some, some interesting. It's well written. I like your penmanship. It's way better than mine. We already know that you honorably retired in February of 2010.
Yes.
So, gosh, that's been 14 years.
14 years.
I will ask you later on what you've been doing the last 14 years.
Okay.
But we'll say
Yeah.
that now. But man, 1982, 1983, Marshall Aid, Riverside County Marshal's Office. You know
Yes.
what? Marshall Aid. Aid sounds so sexy and so. What is
It was
what
a
did you do?
it was a non-sworn position. I served subpoenas in the county of Riverside. I also assisted around the municipal court. The marshal's office is no longer. They are null and void. They were absorbed by the sheriff's department, and I believe about 1987, 86. So I got that job on a fluke, and that was my step into this beloved business. And I was going to college to be a teacher, okay?
Okay.
And I said, to hell with that, man. I like this law enforcement stuff. Where else can you drive fast and take chances? I think I'll
That's
give
right.
this a shot.
Yep. Kick ass and take names later.
And break a couple hearts along the way.
That's
Absolutely.
right. Roger that.
Yeah.
Hey, because I just got a question. Serving subpoenas. What was that? Did you ever get
Oh, geez.
Did anybody
Oh, yeah. Some lady tried to run me over one time. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I almost
you're
caused.
like, I'm just trying to-
I almost caused a riot in Rubidoux, in a place called Belltown, which was not. No one told me this is not even pretend law enforcement friendly like I was. You didn't go there at any time, day or night. And I went into this area and I thought, holy shit, I'm only 23 years old. I'm not going to live through this. And I jumped in my car and I got out of there and I went back to the office. I said, don't ever send me to Belltown ever again. And all the guys out in the IE that are familiar with Belltown, they're kind of, going through the same, thoughts that I am right now in that place. It was not safe.
Out of curiosity, can you please let us know, if you can recall, what type of a subpoena was it?
I believe it was like a small claims. I think it was like the lady that lived there. She was like the matriarch of this big family. And I was, yelling through the fence for her to come get her paperwork. And then the dogs came, and then the sons came, and then the whole, everybody just piled out of this house. And they were not there to, serve me coffee or anything. And they were angry and very, very volatile. And I said, this piece of paper's not worth it, man. And I ran back to my car, jumped in, and got the hell out of there.
Wow.
And I said, never again will I go to Belltown.
For small claims.
For any, yeah, unless we're about 25 deep.
Thank you for sharing that. 1984, entered the San Bernardino Sheriff's Office Academy. You graduated. You wrote it down here with the class president.
Can you believe that?
I can believe it. How did you get chosen to be the class president? That's
okay,
what I like to know.
Here's the deal. Is how I got chosen was, it was the week that the FBI would come out and they would teach us firearms and self-defense. Okay. Those guys needed to get out of there early on a Friday, right? It was a Friday morning about noon, and they had to get out. It was their FBI SWAT team under the direction of the great Ron Fragolti. All the old school guys out there, that name will ring a bell with them. Okay. He was the man, okay? Fragolti and his squad came out. They taught us self-defense and weapons. Friday at noon, I was the interim class sergeant, Okay, that means I did all the reland from the tactical office, come out and say, hey, we got to run 2 miles because Jack off over there didn't do his push-ups right. I was that guy.
Okay.
So I got to come out that day and say, hey guys, we're going home at noon, and everybody thought I was the best thing in the world. So we got back Monday morning, and it was time to vote for class president. Well, all kinds of positive things were still in these guys' mind, from Friday, and I got elected. Which meant that for the last 4 weeks of the academy, I was the guy that had to lead the class in marching and do the cadence, which I was never in the service. I had no clue what to do. I had to learn it really fast. And I was the one they came out and yelled at, and then I had to yell at the troops. So it was not the glamorous thing that everybody thought. I did get to give a speech at graduation, and that was it. I mean, it has done me no good on a resume ever since. Okay.
I get the impression that it's a bit stressful the last 4 weeks.
It was
for
a
you.
bitch. Okay. It was not fun.
Didn't sound like it.
No.
Well, congratulations. You
Well,
were the president
thanks.
of class
77.
of 77.
Yes.
I like it. Upland PD.
Oh, boy.
84, 85. So, okay, well, hold on here. You're in Upland for a year? What's going on?
Less than a year.
Less than a year. What, you weren't
Okay.
the,
When I first went
you
to
weren't the president, or?
when I first went to apply to be a police officer, my first choice was the Los Angeles Police Department
Okay.
in about 1982, 83.
Okay.
There, for some reason, they weren't hiring. Things were really slow then.
Yeah.
So I said, well, maybe my beloved hometown, Riverside. So I applied there. And I got on some waiting list. And the city of Upland was hiring.
Okay.
And I said, well, I got to get my foot in the door somehow. So I applied. And 300 people showed up for 3 spots at the Upland High School cafeteria to take the written test. I finished number 2, which shocked me. I didn't think I was that smart. I still don't think. I think something happened with the grading system. Okay.
If I may interject.
Yes.
I think it's because they knew that you were the class president of the of your academy.
No, because I
student
hadn't.
leadership.
I hadn't. Maybe they would have.
Background investigators do their homework.
Well, I hadn't gone through the. That was when Upland put me through the academy. So I was president after they hired me, unless
Okay.
they had some secret.
They knew you were going to be the president.
Okay, very good. Well, good for them.
We can agree to that.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are at Upland, and what? I mean, we just.
Well, I think the second to last week of the academy, some Riverside guys came out. Their personnel guy, their polygraph guy came out for some barbecue, and they saw me there, and they remembered me, and they said, "Hey, still want to come to our place?" I said, "Yes," and they said, "Okay, when we get an opening, we'll call you." And I'm thinking, "Okay, right, yeah, checks in the mail." So I went on my merry way. Went to Upland. I thought I'd never hear from him, and lo and behold, about 6 months into my tenure in Upland, I got a phone call. And they said, come in for an oral. So I did, and the rest was, like they say, history.
Yeah,
Okay.
the rest is history. So we're at Riverside in '85.
Upland Police Department back then in 1984 was a very, very different organization than they are now. Right now, they're a really good department. I used to live in Rancho Cucamonga, so Upland's right on the border there. I used to go in there all the time. They had a fantastic police department now. Back when I worked there, for instance, if you rode around during daylight hours with your spotlights in the upright position, that was a no-no because you were offensive to the public.
Wow.
It gets better. After 5 o'clock, you're going to laugh when I say this, we became the animal control officers.
Okay.
Yeah. So we carried hefty bags and shovels in our trunk. So we'd go scoop a dead dog, put it in the bag, take it to what they called the cooler, and throw it in like it was like a big giant, mailbox that you go to when you go to the post office. You pull the lever down, and we'd throw the carcass in there.
Did you know you were going to be an animal control
I
officer?
did. That was not in the plan when I signed up. Now, if you think that's bad, one more. And again, I'm not throwing them under the bus. They've gone a long ways. They're a great department now. I had my good buddy who I went to the academy with. I stayed in contact with him up until he retired. It changed. Also, during the summer, early mornings, if you're working what we call graveyard, you guys call it morning watch, graveyard shift, about 6 a.m., if the right person went on vacation, you better go make sure their newspaper is out of the driveway and their water's not getting brown, or their lawn is not getting brown.
Okay, what kind of title is that?
That's
Because we have an animal control officer.
I guess we were
The gardening
public works.
Public
I guess.
Works.
Yeah.
They didn't tell you anything about that in the
No.
when they hired you.
No. And the junior man in roll call was in charge of station cleanup. You emptied the trash, and you made sure the desks were all nice.
Man.
So when Riverside came, when they called me, I couldn't say yes fast enough.
Wow.
And it was a whole different culture in Riverside then.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Man, you had it pretty stressful ever since '84, man. The class president, and you got this animal control function, public
hated that.
works.
I hated that. It was
Let me ask you this: if you would have known you were going to do some public works type of function and be an animal control officer, would you still would have said yes?
well, yeah, that was yes.
Yeah, that's all you probably knew back then.
I had to get my foot in the door somewhere.
Yeah,
And it was back then, unlike today, being a cop was very, very, very. Everybody wanted to be cops back then, so it was
Yeah.
hard. It was hard to get on.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So I had to go with the first person that asked me to dance. I had to go dance with them.
Yeah. You know what? And we'll talk about that later too, because what it is today, it's not what it was
No.
back
No.
then, where
No.
you had this like really emotional, like, oh my God,
I didn't want to take days off.
Yeah, I mean, you were
You
just
know?
like, you know what? I can't wait to be a police officer.
I couldn't wait-
now,
I couldn't wait-
kids probably,
right.
applying, going, nah, I don't even know if I want to do something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's a whole different generation now.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's continue down memory lane. Riverside PD. Look, man, this is cool. TFO, huh? You were a tactical flight officer.
Yeah, for about a year. Yeah.
Okay.
I flew with a really great pilot. A couple of them actually. One was a former Vietnam pilot, and I could tell you some stories about what we did in that helicopter, like on pursuits and foot pursuits and the altitude. But I'm not sure that
Yeah.
I might still be prosecuted. So I'm gonna. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're going to take the fifth on that
Absolutely.
one. For sure. It's another high stress type of job. I do know that TFOs, man, that's really, what I not only applaud, but those guys that's an outstanding, and I say that in a sense that it's very demanding.
You have got to be able to multitask on top of multitasking.
Yeah, you said it.
You got radios. You got you got to help the pilot look out if you for other aircraft when you're on a call around an airport.
Yeah.
and in some type of controlled airspace. It's a whole lot of things. It's a whole lot of stuff to do.
Well, look, let's see. I know from 1995 you were from 1990 to 95 you were an FTO, and then in 1995 you got promoted to detective. Congratulations!
Thank
and
you.
You worked a really good assignment, so we'll get into it in a little bit. I got a question for you. 1992 riots, Rodney King. Okay, so here you are. Were you at work? Were you off when you heard the verdict?
It was about 3:00 in the afternoon. I was asleep. It was a Thursday, April 29th, 1992. About 3:00 in the afternoon. My first wife at the time, came in and woke me up and said, "Hey, they're going to announce the verdict on the Rodney King trial." So I jumped up, went to the TV, and about 10 minutes later, I saw, the not guilties and all that, and I said, "Oh, okay, shit's going to fly." And then about 3 hours later, I'm still at home, and I see Reginald Denny get ripped out of his big rig,
Florence and Normandy,
and that whole area was just the flashpoint of the entire burn of the city back then. And we went on 12-hour shifts. I mean, we were rolling, two to a car. And the funny thing, I wasn't training. I didn't have a recruit then. But if you did have a recruit, he went in the back seat, and you had a regular partner in the front seat. So you rode 3 deep.
Wow.
With a recruit.
Did at any point
Probably because we didn't have enough cars.
Yeah, that could be it.
And it was the entire department was deployed.
I would imagine
two
the chief's
shifts.
going, man, max deployment. We don't even have enough cars to even
right.
do this. Now having to reflect on that time in this historical landmark police type of event, if you will. Did you at any time feel like, oh my God, look, the shit's going down in LA. It better not happen here.
I welcomed it.
Like
we
don't want
no. Let's bring it. We'll quell it. Let's go. This is like that one time if when you're a peacetime Marine or you're a peacetime Army guy, you want a war to start because you want some action.
Yeah.
I know that's probably frowned upon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I said it, but no,
Yeah, you want to protect your city.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
bring it.
for
If you're gonna bring it, let's bring it. Let's do this.
Let's get it done.
Yeah.
No, totally. I'm with you on that.
But it really didn't materialize. There was the first night. There were groupings, and then we'd show up. There'd be 8 of us showing up,
Right.
and everything was pretty quiet.
Look, I do know, and we've talked, before we, started this recording and getting here. I got to know you. I know that you hold a lot of experience being a homicide detective.
Yes.
And to you, that's dear. It's very special to you. I know you did undercover narcotics. You were economic crimes, homicide, and you also are very familiar with the OIS process.
Yes.
The officer
Yes.
involved shootings. I'm sure we can talk a lot about the OISs. And then in 2003 to 2010, you went back to just being a general investigator, right?
Yeah, I was sent to purgatory.
You were sent to purgatory because I want to kind of set the stage to talk about your IA story. I do know that it leaves a scar, if you will, with this, an outstanding career. You've done so much. And I know this one situation, and it wasn't just one, it was one that really stood out, that affected your expertise, it affected your morale, it definitely affected everything that you worked so hard for to get to where you're at. And I'll set the stage up for you like that because I know your IA story is one that I really believe we're going to learn a lot. And, tell us what happened, man.
Okay.
How did that go?
Let's roll the clock back to about May 13th, 2001. It was Mother's Day night. An elderly lady in the city of Riverside was missing. We got there the next day is when she was reported to be gone, but it happened that night, Mother's Day night. We went to the house. There was all kinds of evidence of foul play. There was blood present with bleach over it. Everything was indicative of some type of struggle. Her car was missing. She was 83 years old, lived by herself. It looked like she had been taken against her will. Her car was gone, like I said. It had all her purse was still there. It had all the earmarks of some type of kidnap, with who knows what after that.
Okay.
We worked the case up. We interviewed. You start with the family and move out. We eliminated them. They had no motive. They had no. We eliminated anybody close to her.
Right.
From the wrongdoing. This case took time. About a month later, a copycat type thing took place in the same neighborhood on a 95-year-old woman, but it was only a assault. She survived the attempt murder, was able to call the police. Police went out. The initial patrol officers did a fantastic job in preserving the evidence. It was a warm summer morning. The lady had been out watering her plants and her dirt garden where the plants were, and there was a shoe print of a size 12 and 1 sneaker. Okay. Approximate size 12. And the coppers that rolled out on that did a great job preserving it. I went out with the assault detective. We worked this case up. I suggested we had a bunch of guys out working we knew it was the same suspect. That we had, in that month, we had eliminated a whole bunch of people. We had gone to Vegas. We had found the car. The kid driving the car had nothing to do with the murder. He just found this car in Las Vegas with the keys in it, started driving it. We went to Vegas, talked to him, interviewed him, interrogated him. He had nothing to do with it. We eliminated him. Like I say, we were back to square one. However, on this particular instance, it was trash day. So like all good policemen, we started looking through the trash. Okay. And in front of this one house was a piece of paper from a parole officer. And we all of a sudden we focused on this house. We called the parole officer. We identified who was living there, and we conducted a parole search. And we walked into this guy's bedroom, and lo and behold, right in front of me was a pair of And 1 size 12 sneakers that still had dirt on them. I go, wow, just like that. I think we got our guy, or at least that's looking good. Long story short, we put a case together on him. He never did cop out. However, he pled guilty to the assault of the 95-year-old, but wouldn't come clean on where the other victim's body was. To this day, we have no idea where the body is. However, we got a first-degree murder and a death sentence on him without a body. And we don't want to, the credit is not, it didn't go to, we just worked the case up. The DA on the case, Bill Mitchell, who's retired now, did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. To get a death penalty conviction without a body, without a victim's body, is nearly impossible. And he did.
Wow.
And so during the time I'm working this case, which was very labor intensive with some other detectives, I was called out on a SIDS death in January of the same year.
Right.
And we were the on-call guys. We would go out on any type of death investigation. It's changed now where there is a child abuse unit, and they go out on those. We don't go out on those anymore. Or the homicide detectives do not go out on those anymore. They have a specialized group, thank goodness. But we went out on that, and we investigated it. You know, it was, I think, a 4-month-old. So I think it's been so long. But the bottom line was, after the autopsy, the coroner, who was a world-renowned pediatric forensic pathologist, said, "This is your classic SIDS."
And if I may interject, just for the audience, SIDS is a sudden infant death syndrome.
Correct.
And
Correct.
what's the criteria of a SIDS? I know a little bit because I actually had a case also when I worked patrol.
It's just one of those crazy things that happens when maybe your positioning is bad in the bed.
Naturally within 6 months.
Yes.
Natural causes in 6 months or less.
Yes, we basically ruled out any criminal wrongdoing on the parents were distraught. The parents, they were in a lower income area. They didn't have much, and they had nothing. This was not on them.
Right.
This was just a horrible, horrible situation.
Right.
And so it was my case to pretty much put together and send to the DA just for their info. And I did.
Okay.
I did. And it got kicked back to me from the DA that was now heading this, what was it called? It was called the Death Task Force. She wanted all the cases on deaths, because she wanted to look a lot more at them and justify her existence for forming this task force, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them probably good, righteous cases. This one was non-criminal.
Right.
So she sent it back. She had some questions. I answered the questions. I reinvestigated. I think I went and talked to like the paramedics or something. Put the case together, sent it back over. I went on vacation. All right. I got back, and my sergeant said, she's kicked it back again. I said, Jesus Christ. I go, what does she want? I go, this is just a absolute non-criminal SIDS death. I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a tape recorder to the DA's office, and I'm gonna lay it in front of her, and I'm gonna say, give me my marching orders so I know exactly what I need to do. He goes, oh, great idea. I said, oh, okay. So I drive down to the DA's office. I go up to her office.
We can laugh about it now.
Absolutely. I don't condone this type of behavior. Okay, this was not one of my smartest moves I ever made. But I go up, I throw the tape recorder down. I said, I'm going to get my marching orders clear and concise here. So I'm going to tape record our conversation so I know exactly what I need to do, which I think I've already done over and over and over again. And she goes, well, I'll call a DA investigator up here. I said, and if you do, let them handle it, okay? Just let them take it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but, I'm kind of working a complex murder case here. And she goes, well, and she said something that just irked me. So I said, why don't you quit acting like a feminazi about this, and let's just get this thing done. And the old feminazi word, and which, it was, and the definition of it, because I used to hear it, Rush Limbaugh used to say that all the time about Hillary Clinton. Okay. So that's where I'd heard the term, and it's man-hating, inflexible, intolerant, and dangerous, and that's exactly what she was. Okay. So the definition fit the crime there. Well, she didn't take too kindly to that, obviously. And I thought we were just going to have an argument about it and be done. But no, I was probably no more out of her office than she called the captain, who was at a conference in Palm Springs. He then called my sergeant, because when I got back, it was no longer oh yeah, go ahead, great idea. He goes, okay, Bill, the tape's part of the investigation. I need the tape. I'm going to make a copy. I said, certainly. Here you go. And so then that day was over. I came back the next day, and all of a sudden, I am under house arrest. I'm not to leave my desk. I am to do all of my old cases, get them all caught up, put the homicide aside right now, and make sure that all my open cases are done. If I want to go to lunch, I got to ask permission. If I want to go out to my car, I'm thinking, what in the did I do to deserve this? Well, it wasn't so much the feminazi statement, because I told him, I said, she's probably pissed off because, this is what I did, and it wasn't so much that. It was that prior to this little wing ding that I did, we had 2 detectives prior to me get fired for dereliction of duty, okay? And it's happening under this brand new captain's watch. Yeah. He was a non-cop, okay, to put it bluntly. He came with a brand new chief who had already left from San Diego. He hadn't been in a uniform probably since about 1985, and was in charge of records, in charge of all these other clerical things. And then he went to the detective bureau. And they threw him a bone. They had him go out there. And his job when he came here with his chief from San Diego was to change the culture of this department, to just kick the shit out of it and bring it into, mainline 2000 police work.
Okay.
And so he thought he might want to, after these other 2 guys were fired, I guess now that we've got a third problem child, and that third problem child he thought was me. And what irritated me about this whole thing was I would have welcomed internal affairs to investigate this. I would have welcomed them. But he had the sergeant do it that laughed about me going over with the tape recorder. So he became
DIO.
Yeah, the judge, jury, and executioner, because he wanted to cover his ass.
Yeah.
So that's where this whole thing went for about the next 7 months.
Wow.
Then now it gets better. You can't make this up. It gets better. The female DA who I offended, her boyfriend was the DA on the murder case that I put together and sent the case book over. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So about a week later, when I sent the book over, he calls my boss and says, I don't like the way the book is, the reads, the format is weird. And he had me listen to the message. And I go, geez, they didn't, I put the case together like I always do. I go, they didn't really teach us that in Casebook 101, Yeah. They take the thing apart and put it the way they want to anyway.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking, okay, all right, I can see the rifle scope is on me on this. This is going to get ugly. And it did. It did. So I was basically barred from any on-call. I was barred from handling any murder cases. I was out of the loop, out of the rotation. I was to sit at my desk and just be, the house bitch. in the unit, and I know it was probably pissing the other 7 guys that I worked with off. I can't go out and assist. They're catching they're catching more work than they should, et cetera, et cetera. So on several occasions, I went in to the lieutenant and said, "Hey, if you want to transfer me, transfer me." I said, "This is bullshit. The way I'm just being left in limbo."
Yeah, you're being treated.
Right. 4 interviews later, this guy promoted to lieutenant during the investigation process. Oh, I wonder why, and he still kept it. And he's still the one that's investigating this, right? I'm kind of leaving some things out, but I'm trying to make this a Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
So probably about this started on September 11th, 2001.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And let's fast forward to about June of 2002 is when I got my what we call them, our Skelly papers.
That's right. You're being served.
Yeah. My captain, it was a new captain, called me in who knew me, and he was one of many that during this investigation went to the chief and said, Bill's a stand-up guy. Well, this is wrong. I had some great character witnesses. And so during the course of this 8-month debacle, I got called in, and he said, "Hey, here's your paper." He goes, "I'm going to need your gun. I'm going to need your badge. You will survive this." He goes, "What's on here looks ugly. It looks bad. You will survive this." And he looked at me right in the eye and told me I would survive it. And it said termination. Right? So I called one of the reps, and I had Michael Schwartz as my attorney through this whole thing. As we all know, Michael Schwartz is one of the best in the business.
He's a heavy hitter.
Heavy hitter. He told me during this whole thing, he goes, "Who did you piss off?"
Yeah.
And I disclosed everything to him. There's certain people you don't lie to. Your doctor and your attorney.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And I went straight up with him and told him, and he goes, "You'll be all right." And then going back to when I went in and said, "Hey, this is bullshit. Transfer me."
Yeah.
They go, "Oh no. See how no, it'll all work out. Let's just see where the evidence takes it." When somebody tells you that, you are getting breech loaded.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what happened. Now, was it my fault that I went in there, dirty, Clint Eastwood's or Harry Callahan style, and got smart ass with her? Yes, absolutely wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. I should have went in there, hat in hand. "Thank you, ma'am. May I have another?" Just did do whatever she wanted me to do. Get up and walk out. 22 years later, now I know that,
Yeah.
and it didn't take me long to figure that out, that I had made a very, very, very catastrophic mistake.
Yeah. My first thought is, I don't necessarily think it's catastrophic. I think the department made it catastrophic.
They did.
They
did.
The fact that you called her a feminazi, let's take the totality of the circumstances. You got this big case going on. Mm-hmm. Rather than me elaborating and trying to have this analysis of how we're going to adjudicate this, it's going to be sustained no matter what.
Absolutely.
We can both agree. And you take complete accountability.
Absolutely.
I'm with you on that.
Absolutely. But here's what I failed to kind of tell you in the interim. During this whole 8-month period, they would go and they were doing what they called case biopsies. Okay? It was an audit of my work. They had to go 3 or 4 years back and pull shit out that they thought I could have done more on.
Yeah.
In fact, they took that murder investigation away from me when the DA complained, but when it went to court, I was back as the investigating officer on that when it went to court.
Okay,
a couple years after. But during that interim, because it was basically done, there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
Right?
I bet you felt like saying, I have amnesia. I don't even remember what I did. But that's not within
but
you.
It was a really, really bad 8 months. And again, it was the process.
Yes.
When I went into the chief's office for for my discipline. First of all, I was relieved of duty that day by the captain. And he goes, you have a way home? I go, no. He goes, just take your car home, but don't drive it. I go, yes, sir. So here, no badge, no gun. I'm driving a detective car home, and I put it in my garage.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So I could kind of, read between the lines. My rep said, the chief's not going to fire you. He goes, this is a message being sent that if they're going to with you, they'll with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. You're the sacrificial lamb. You're well liked. You've done a great job. And the message is being sent that if they'll burn one of the top guys, that no one's safe.
So what was the outcome?
Oh,
what happened?
Well,
because
I went in.
All I got right now is an inappropriate remark.
Inappropriate remark.
Facing termination.
And 4 counts of dereliction of duty on cases that could have been provided more investigation, which wrong. That was absolutely, and that turned out to be unfounded. They unfounded that.
I would imagine they would.
They unfounded that.
I can tell you from experience, I would have done that too.
This rude conduct, officer conduct unbecoming to a fellow, officer of the court or whatever they pointed.
So they added a Cubo on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
we got 2 counts.
Yes. Cubo under the color of authority.
Wow, that sounds.
Have you ever heard of that?
No,
Yeah.
That's a Cubo first degree, I guess.
Yeah, that's punishable by life in prison.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went in, and the chief at the time, Russ Leach, former LAPD captain, nice man. He liked me. So he sat right there, and he goes, Bill, he goes, you do great work. He goes, I had a line of people come in as a character witness, and then I see this shit. He goes, you're an enigma. He called me an enigma. And I go, damn, wow. He goes, and then his chief of staff, this commander guy who hated me worse than the captain who started this thing, was sitting there just chomping at to get at me. And he told Michael Schwartz, he goes, let's hash this out. We're not going to fire you. He goes, but let's go go into the chief of staff's office and come up with some suitable discipline.
Right.
I said, okay. So this guy sat down and he started threatening a demotion, and I almost said, great, do it, fully well knowing I'd win it back.
Yeah.
Because Schwartz had briefed me on this.
Yes.
He said, hey, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do that. So then when I started to say, Mike, he nudged me and he basically said, stop. So he said, let's take a break. So we go outside. He goes, let's do this. I'm gonna counter with 4 weeks on the beach, 2 of which you can use your vacation. And I'd already been off 2 weeks on admin leave, being paid, right?
Okay.
And I was kind of liking not working, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd already had another job set up because I knew I was going to get hammered, and I knew I'd need to go make some money. I said, yeah, what the hell? Let's do it. Let me sign off. Let's get this behind me.
Yeah.
I said, let's go.
Yeah, let's have some closure.
So we go in. I signed the paper. 2 weeks, and one of the conditions was that it would not affect my performance evaluations, because all my performance evaluations in the past were exceed standards. And how can they downgrade me during this period when they won't let me work?
Yeah.
And he goes, agreed. So Schwartz wrote it down, and I went on my merry way. Oh my God, it was during the summer. I had a job at a really, really elite elementary school, teaching not teaching at all, but working with 4th through 6th graders, playing kickball and capture the flag for 4 hours a day. And the best part of that job, Marlon, was from like 7 in the morning to 7:30 when the kids got dropped off at school. I was supposed to be in the parking lot making sure that the traffic flowed good. And during the summer, some of the moms that dropped those kids off, it was just an outstanding way of spending the summer. Just the sights was, I was single then. The sights were extraordinary.
Good eye candy.
Oh my God. And after the month that I was there, and I told the kids I had to go back to my job, they started crying.
Wow.
They were upset, and it affected me. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, these kids love me.
Yeah.
And so I went to the principal, who was a friend of one of my copper buddies' wife. And I said, if you can match my salary at the police department and give me benefits, I'll do this till the day I die. She goes, oh, well, we'd love to have you, but we just can't afford that. And I go, I know, but, I just wanted to throw it out there. So I went back to work. Now, my first day back to work, get this. If you think it can't get any better, if you can't make this up, my first day back, I go in, I show up, I'm out of the penalty box. I got no tail on me, right? I walk in, I said, hey, Sarge, I'm back. It's a new sergeant now, like 2 or 3 removed. He goes, oh, great, man, I'm glad you, he goes, so what's your deal? I go, as far as I know, nothing, man. I go, I got a clean tail, I'm ready to go. I've had a lot of rest. He goes, great, you're the next one up. That night, there was an officer-involved shooting. I get the phone call. I roll out at 11:30 at night. First guy I see is the chief. He looks at me like I'm a ghost, right? He goes, hi, Bill. I go, hey, chief. And we do the briefing, and my lieutenant's there. And I look over, and he is chewing her up one side and down the other. He's ripping into her like you. I go, here it goes. Here it goes. So my partner and I, we go to leave, right? And we're pulling out. We're on the street. She comes out, jumps in front of the car like a 5-year-old waving down the ice cream man, okay? I either stop or I hit her, right?
Right.
So I stop. She comes up. Bill, there's going to be a change here. He's now going to handle it, and we've got some witnesses at the station you need to go interview. I said, you got to be shitting me. I said, why? You had your chance.
Yeah.
You had
did.
your chance. So, did what I was told. The next day, I got transferred to burglary.
What a reward.
So, purgatory for the next 7 years. But I will say this. Whenever there was a big kind of like a criminal case involving a city worker, some type of employee with the police department, guess who they go throw the case at?
Bill Barnes.
I did it.
Yeah. You think Faith has it that you went through this IA for you to really enjoy being at this elementary school around kids? And I asked that because
I would have rather not, but I made the best of it.
But let me ask you this. So we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
So having a chance to reflect on it now, you stated that when they left, these kids were distraught. They were like, oh my God.
Like they're whatever I was to them, a father figure, big brother figure, uncle figure.
And I don't mean to get touchy feely, but did you feel a sense of? Sense of like, wow, this. Look at the impact I'm having on these kids.
Exactly. And all we did was go out and play kickball, capture the flag, and I'd joke with him and tease him, and we had a great time.
Yeah.
And they were just distraught.
Yeah. I always say this about faith and about God, how we as people we're instruments to do His work. I'm led to believe that probably all that happened so that you can be in that school, so that you can have that joy that you probably didn't have in the past.
It was fun. It was a month of pure Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to noon, 5 hours, and it was great.
Considering you've been a homicide detective and you have seen the darkest moments and the darkest cases that God has to offer, so. Interesting story. I can tell you from experience now, switching back to my hat. Yeah, I've never heard of an inappropriate remark in a cubo conduct on becoming an officer.
Hey, I was the test dummy for a while.
You were test. I would imagine now at Riverside PD, if there's an inappropriate remark, I'm willing to bet that they're probably not considering termination.
Well, the termination was on these 4 cases that they alleged were, egregious
neglect.
It's
NOD. Yeah, but I can tell you from experiences is that I don't necessarily think that even with 4 allegations of neglect of duty, which by the way, it's like subsequent to the inappropriate remark, it's just a personal vendetta. It's a personal attack.
That's all it was.
And unfortunately, that's as much fun as we're having talking about this. That is the lessons learned. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
The lessons learned is like, look, if you're going to be an adjudicator, kind of hone in and focus. Look,
first of all, that shouldn't have been investigated by somebody in my own house.
That is a major lessons learned
Right?
because
That should have been if it's that bad, he should have had no part of it. It should have went to IA. I would have welcomed internal affairs. In fact, years later, the guy that actually in internal affairs, who retired as a lieutenant, he looked at that case. And years later, we both retired. I met up with him in Spokane, Washington. He said, "Bill, you got railroaded." He goes, if that wasn't a hatchet job, he goes, "I wanted no part of that."
oh yeah, no,
He
totally.
goes, I read that. He goes, that was an absolute, that was just a hatchet job from the word go.
Oh no, absolutely. Look, that's kind of like basic IA 101 stuff. Where if you are the sergeant and have like a material fact involved in this matter, you got to that sergeant should have said, "Hey man, you know what? I can't do this because I'm a possible
I
witness."
guarantee knowing him, he tried to do that, but that captain said, "Oh no,
I'm putting it on you.
oh no, you've allowed these monsters to surface. You chop them."
Yeah,
I guarantee that's what it was.
Yeah, well, that captain or that command staff is not really too familiar with internal affairs procedures. So that's just me. That's my take.
As karma has it, all those guys are gone now. They all left under really bad circumstances.
Oh, okay. See,
Every
it
dog
happens.
has their day.
Yeah, no,
sooner or
totally.
later.
Hey, man, you know what? Thank you for sharing that. There is a lot of lessons learned. I know when we talked about this.
I've talked to people about it in the past. I have never done a deep dive into this like I have tonight with you. I've never just laid it out like, there's blame on my end. Absolutely.
Right. There's some accountability.
Absolutely.
For sure.
If we could turn the clock back, if we could jump in the time tunnel and go back to whatever date that was, things would have been done a whole lot different.
Oh, no, absolutely. 100%.
But I don't believe that the process was fair. In fact, this commander who was behind this, he made the statement when he was in charge of internal affairs. His statement was, when we win, we win. When we lose, we still win. And that's because of the process that the copper goes through, going through that.
Yep.
And dealing with the day in, day out stress of what's going to happen.
No, totally. Man, good lessons learned, man. I thank you for those takeaways. Worst and best. Let's get to that.
Let's start.
Let's go with the worst.
Worst. Okay. I'm going to try to concise this as best I can.
Give me the highlights.
Okay. Prior to me going into the penalty box, this was January of, I believe, 2001. It was a Saturday morning. I'm the on-call detective. We were allowed personal use of our vehicles if we were on call. I'm driving. I think I'm going to the store or something. I don't know where I was going. And police radio's on. I hear a officer down, shots fired. 1199, which is equivalent to a officer needs help call in your
beloved LAPD.
Yes. And I go, holy shit! I key in. I go, where the hell's that at? And it was downtown somewhere. So I started going, right, because I know I'm going to go anyway.
Right.
And when I got there, the suspect had already been barricaded. The officer was in an ambulance. There was plenty of assets there. I didn't need to be there. The sergeant there, a friend of mine, says, "Hey, Bill, can you go? Can you follow the ambulance?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Who is it?" And he told me, and he went, "He's not going to make it." And I go, "Oh, shit." So I followed the ambulance to the hospital, and Riverside Community Hospital, about a 5-minute drive, code 3. I went into the ER with his name was Doug Jacobs. Good kid, great kid. I go in, and the doctor, they're doing what they can, but what happened was he was up on a stairway, looked down, and he was through the nose. The round lodged in his brain. And there was very little trauma, very little blood. I mean, it was really strange. So, long story short, I had to stay there. The doctor asked me if I could come over and remove his weapon, take possession of it. I did. I gave it to some cop that was with me, and his badge. Secure it in your trunk. Because I'm assigned to him now. He is, as brutal as this sound and as ugly as this sound, he's now deceased, obviously, and he's evidence. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. We have to stay with him because we're going to have to inventory his uniform. We're going to have to do all kinds of things that nobody wants to do.
Did the suspect is alive or was he dead?
He gave up. He came out of the house naked and put his arms around a tree.
But he wasn't KMA. He wasn't dead.
No.
Okay, got it.
No.
More. The reason why I ask is more reasons to
Absolutely.
preserve the fact that he is part of the evidence.
Get to that. This is something. Now, again, let me before I go on. Any death that you went out on, whether it's a patrolman, detective, those are the worst, the absolute freaking worst. This one, however, was bad because this stuck with me for 20 years, and I'll tell you why. So on that particular day, they put him in a private room. I had the door cracked. Okay, no one's going to get in there. No one's going to do anything. I'm there at the door. I don't want to be in there with him with the door shut. It just freaked me the fuck out. I did not want to do that.
Yeah.
So the door was cracked, and I was at the door, and about 20 minutes, I'm waiting for our evidence technicians to come down. I'm waiting for, some help there to start processing the scene. And a off-duty sergeant walks in who has nothing to do with the investigation. He's there as the widow's, the advocate, so to speak. He asked me if the widow could go see her husband. I looked at him and I said, no. I said, no. I said, man, this is a crime. I said, as ugly as this sounds, and I'm thinking he should know this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's asking on her behalf. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he's just going through the motions. He knows I'm going to say no, and we'll all be, play nice again. So he gets pissed. And he goes, well, I'm going to take this to the next level. I said, take it to the President of the United States. Be my guest. Yep. He goes to a deputy chief. The deputy chief comes in, and she had been outstanding detective when she worked. She knew the score. She knew what the deal was. And she asked me, I said, no. I said, when he gets to the coroner's office and they do whatever they need to do, then I'm sure when they say it's okay, she can go in. I go, if you think I like keeping her from him, no.
Right, making
that's
this
just
decision.
the way it has to be.
Yeah.
So the investigation was done. It was, this guy he was tried and convicted and given the death sentence for this murder.
Oh, man.
Let's fast forward about 19 years. The death penalty part was thrown out because it was the decision was rendered by the Court of Appeals that he had insufficient defense for that portion of the trial. So they had to redo the death penalty part. Okay? This is in September of 2021. All right? 20 years after this happened, okay? And I get subpoenaed to go to court on this. I was never subpoenaed on the original case, but I go on this one. And so I was to testify about what I did at the hospital, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this is about, the impact to witnesses and victims, correct? She goes, yeah. I said, let me run this by you. And I told her the story of what happened. She goes, absolutely. I'm going to question you. I'm going to bring that up. So I had to tell that story again with the widow in the courtroom.
Oh.
She never knew. She never knew the reason why I refused her to go in. Okay? Yeah. She must have had an absolute hatred for me for those 20 years. So when I was done testifying, I left. I was down in my car. I got a text from her good friend, who's a former dispatcher, and she texted me. She said, Bill, she never knew that was the reason. No one ever explained that to her. Now she understands.
Wow. Closure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me was bad because a cop was dead.
Oh, fellow officer
fellow
alone.
officer who I knew very well. Nice kid. This guy had just gotten promoted to detective, and because there was no spots in the bureau, he was still working patrol.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, man. Give me best.
Oh, best. By far the best. I mean, there were things on the job when I was, working that were great and all that, but they're all in one big package. The best thing was about 2018. I was retired, obviously. Good friend of mine, retired LAPD P2 Mike Gilbert, who you should have on this show, because 1 hour would not do it justice. It would be a mini series on all the things he's done.
Roger that.
Now he's going to kill me for bringing his name up, but I don't care. Okay. But anyway, his son, Kyle, wanted to be a cop, and Mike was dead set against it. Did not want him to be a policeman. And he was dead set to be a policeman. And so he was going to try to talk him out of it. So we took him in his little man cave he has at his house. And we took Kyle in there, me and him. It was about 100-degree day in the Inland Empire, and we just browbeat him like you would not believe. We gave him all the gory things about being a cop, the good, the bad, the ugly.
He's in the box.
Oh, yeah, he was in the box. And after that was, but the 2.5, 3 hours that we got done with, he still wanted to be a cop. So finally his dad said, he's going to be a cop, you know. And so he asked me about Riverside. And he said, Bill, I've applied there, but I was an athlete, you know, in college, and there's a certain thing in my background that's given me a flaw. And it's nothing bad. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Read between the lines. Athlete,
Yeah.
5-year wait because post says you can't, you have to have a 5. I'm not going to, you know, figure it out.
Totally.
Yeah. So I called my old buddy, Larry Gonzalez, he was the interim chief at the time because the chief.
Someone left.
Yeah, it was former LAPD guy that we talked about the other day.
Sergio Diaz.
Sergio had just left. So I did not really know Sergio that well.
Okay.
But Larry was the interim. I knew him very well.
Yeah.
We were boys from back in the day. I called him. I said, hey, Larry, here's the deal. And I laid it all out to him. And he said, Bill, we like this kid. We've had 2 orals with him. Problem is, we can't hire him for another 1.5 years. If he commits to us, okay, we will hire him because we like him. And as long as he, you know, because he had also applied to like Santa Ana and a couple other places.
Different
and I went and told him, I said, Kyle, here's the deal, man. They're going to hire you, but you got to commit to him. He goes, absolutely. So lo and behold, he went through the academy, finished very high, did very well. In 2020, he hit the streets. It's now 2024. In that 4-year period, he has become an FTO and an auxiliary SWAT member. And he's just, he's a superstar over there. And that made me feel good. That's my best story.
Awesome. Hey, man, we met because of Phil Smith.
We did.
Richie Cunningham.
I won't give you the nickname I had for him. I think we talked about it.
I only said it once when he was here on the episode. I should have joked around even more.
His hire-on picture looked like John Holmes. So my nickname for him is John Holmes.
There you go. Good old Captain Smith.
Yeah.
Man, what a good dude.
And see, I never knew him as a captain. I never knew him on the job. The company we work at now, I know him as Phil.
Right.
But it would have been a pleasure to work for him.
Yes.
He's one of those guys
He's a good
that
dude.
would go out of his way to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
dude, man, I had a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for coming here, sharing everything with us. Any parting words before we leave? Any man, you had a long career. Anything we can tell to anybody who's listening that's young on the job or even trying to come on?
I left like almost the day I turned 50. I was done. All right. I was a Division I baseball umpire for 10 years. I did that after I retired. I quit when the pandemic hit. I knew things wouldn't be the same, and plus I was getting up there in age, and I shut that down then. So I had a good afterlife. Okay. I did a lot of fun stuff. I traveled the country, saw places I'd never see, because other than baseball took me there. So that was fun. But enough about me. I would say, don't let your mouth override. Don't write checks your mouth can't cash, because that was my demise. I was the funny guy, Mr. Ha Ha, and it bit me in the ass. And I didn't intend to really piss her off. I just wanted her to know how I felt.
Yeah. Great advice, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up. And you know what? Look, like always, please be safe. And don't forget to go code 6. Thank you.
1097 for us 10 code guys in the IE.